let's figure out how to open it up and see what's in this thing. The first thing you see is this Nintendo logo. Just slide it out of the box there. And that is the Nintendo GameCube controller that works with the Switch Online. Let's pop it out of here. Ooh, this thing feels really nice. If I was blindfolded and you handed me this thing compared to the actual controller, I would probably have a hard time figuring out which is which. Just look how awesome this is. I can't wait to get to use this on my Switch too. Now we just have to wait for Nintendo to release more GameCube.
Hello everyone, this is Magbo speaking once again in Angry Guys channel. I hope you're all doing well, and today we're gonna talk a little bit different compared to the other Switch 2 videos we have done, because this one is gonna be focused on the Nintendo GameCube Nintendo Switch Online membership. Before we get started with the topic, if you want to know more about cryptocurrency, how to invest, how to own something, because Nintendo don't want you to own anything, you can check out Angry's Crypto Academy. Also, you can check out my YouTube channel at Magbo Gaming. I recently made a video on the Nintendo 64 retrospective, and I'm really proud of my work, and I hope that you enjoy as well. So feel free to check it out if you are interested in the Nintendo 64 lore, if you grew up with it, if you like games for it, stuff like that. So yeah, we're gonna do a mixture today on both a commentary upon this video from Right2K Collector. Be sure to check out his channel as well. We're going to give him credits for this video, of course, because he talks about the Nintendo GameCube online services. And then we throw in some TikTok videos as well related to the subject, so you could have others' perspective on how people are feeling with the Nintendo GameCube's limited lagging services that we have. I mean, we only have 3 games so far for the Nintendo GameCube Online service, which are Zelda, the Wind Waker, F-Zero GX, and Soul Calibur with the Link character there. I would suspect they should have had Mario Sunshine from the get-go, and Mario Kart Double Dash and all that stuff, but nope. I guess we're gonna have to wait for that, don't we? Anyways, let's get on to the video. Let's see what Y2K Collector has to say about this.
The Y2K Collector, and enthusiasts of emulation hate when proponents of physical game collecting make this statement, but we have to admit for the times when it's actually true. And we are seeing an example yet again with the Switch 2 online service for the GameCube is proving that retro video games, original physical video games, play better than any other type of emulation that you can find out there. Now, I know that there are many ways to emulate Nintendo games, specifically GameCube games, but I would think that there would be no better a company to emulate these games than Nintendo themselves.
So yeah, because Nintendo is using emulation for the Nintendo GameCube Online service, and the fact that only Switch 2 users can actually enjoy it is baffling to me, because I'm pretty sure GameCube games can run perfectly fine on a Nintendo Switch 1, but yet they decide, oh, if you don't have a Switch 2, forget the GameCube, you're not going to enjoy it. And I say to that, well, I have an original GameCube, I have almost 30 games for this thing, I would say like 20 to 25 games in total, and a lot of those games that they offer, most of them, or at least part of it, I already own on my library of the original GameCube games. And like he says over there, the original GameCube, there's no replicating that thing. It's not exactly the same as running it in native hardware. It's not the same at all. Like, you definitely will notice an experience. Of course, you'll be able to play GameCube games on a Steam Deck, but if you play with the Steam Deck controller or whatever, it's definitely different. A different experience compared to playing with a GameCube controller.
It seems that they failed to do this effectively with each iteration of a console that they bring to their online service. We saw it with the N64, and now we're seeing it with the GameCube. Now, the thing is that a lot of people who play these games on the Switch online service are more casual gamers. They're not gamers who try to speed run these games, or they may not even be attempting to beat the game particularly. They're probably just playing it a little bit here and there for nostalgia's sake, but they're not necessarily trying to seriously beat these games on the Switch Online service.
And he is absolutely correct about that, because me personally, when I play some of the games on the Nintendo Switch Online services, it's very, very casual. Like, I don't spend too much time on games over there. The only thing I like about having those retro games in the Nintendo Switch Online is because you get to play with other friends of yours online with those retro games that there's no way you could have done that on native hardware unless you emulate them in some way, shape, or form. So it's definitely that experience that you go for. But if it's, in my case, if I want to play those games right now, I could just play it on original hardware, or I could have them on a modded console and I could just play it there. And I know that Nintendo will never be able to take those games away from me. So that is the biggest difference right there.
So the addition of the GameCube feature is really more of a novelty than necessarily something that I think a lot of gamers will actually use to play these games. I could be wrong, but that's just my thought process. Nevertheless, we're seeing where there's some significant issues when trying to play GameCube games on the Switch Online service versus the original GameCube. And the two that stick out the most to me are going to be, one, the sensitivity with the analog stick, where some games just aren't calibrated properly to be able to provide the accurate sensitivity of motion when moving the analog stick in any direction. In a lot of cases, we're seeing where the sensitivity is a bit too high, and if you barely move the analog stick a little bit, the character or the vehicle in whatever game you're playing might move a little bit too far or a little bit too fast than anticipated, or rather a little bit more than what was originally presented in the game's original format. So that's one issue that we're seeing. Another issue that we're seeing is the obvious input lag. And for me, input lag is the biggest issue that I've always had with emulation. Doesn't mean that I'm absolutely against emulation or that I hate emulation, but I do think that this is a challenge with emulation when trying to use emulation to play certain games. Now, I think that the input lag thing doesn't really matter as much, or when you're playing rather more slower paced games or games that don't necessarily require precise inputs. And that's typically going to be your turn-based RPGs. If you're playing a turn-based RPG, you don't necessarily have to have lightning quick responsive inputs that match down to the millisecond. You don't necessarily need that because you can take your time. It's a slower paced game and there's really not a lot of moving parts working against you in the game. But when you take a game like Ikaruga, which was probably the best shoot 'em up on the GameCube, one of the best shoot 'em ups of its era, in my opinion. This is definitely probably top 10 shoot 'em ups of all time if you ask some people. But if you take a game like Ikaruga, Ikaruga is a very fast-paced, top-down cave-style shoot 'em up that requires precision movements, precision timing, and you really have to be on your P's and Q's when you're playing a game like this because the pace of this game is extremely fast.
So yeah, input lag, those type of issues can be very annoying, especially for what the game that he says, that if it's like action based, if it's like you being active with your input, if you're playing a fighting game like Street Fighters or King of Fighters or any other fighting game like that, especially Soul Calibur on the GameCube, by the way, that if there is input lags on a game like Soul Calibur that's already on the Nintendo Switch Online, then you're gonna notice that input lag and it's not gonna allow you to react quickly to whatever movements your computer opponent is gonna make or whatever, and it just kills the experience. Having lags in Smash Brothers also sucks as well because you're gonna notice it and it's not as fluid as playing it offline. So it all depends on the games, but it's true, like having input lag is an issue on the Nintendo Switch Online because a lot of the games are action-based. There are some turn-based RPG, but a game like F-Zero, which is very fast-paced, especially F-Zero GX and Soul Calibur, yeah, no, you're gonna need to have better input. Like, it's tough for emulations to perfect that, because there's a lot of technological issues that comes with it that you have to get around. So yeah, we're gonna just commentate a little bit more on this.
And when you have an input lag that could last up to anywhere between half a second and a whole second, that could mean the distance between getting blown out the sky or actually dodging an enemy attack. And a lot of times for folks who play games like this, precision is extremely important. This is one of the biggest reasons why, as much as I like the mini consoles that we got over the last 5 to 10 years, when they initially started coming out with like the NES Mini and the Sega Genesis Mini and the Sega Genesis Mini 2, I thought these mini consoles were great, but the biggest issue and the biggest flaw that I saw with them immediately was the input lag, especially with the Sega Genesis Mini consoles, because of course those consoles had some of my favorite shoot 'em ups on them, specifically the Sega Genesis Mini 2. That was a console that had Lightning Force, or otherwise known as Thunder Force 4, which is a side-scrolling shoot 'em up. And there was a very, very huge difference in my performance when playing that game on an original Sega Genesis, because I do have the game in its original format on the Sega Genesis. I have the physical cartridge, versus when I would play it on the Sega Genesis Mini. I noticed that my ability to dodge was severely hamstrung by the input lag on the Sega Genesis Mini 2, and I've actually streamed that game on my channel before.
So as you can see, this is why a lot of people prefer playing games on original hardware compared to an emulation. And since the Nintendo Switch 2 Online for GameCube is emulation based, there tends to be some issues with it. I don't know too much input lags on the SNES Classic because I actually own it and I played it and I think it was pretty good. But when it comes to fast-paced action, I do notice sometimes in certain games where it gets a little bit laggy. But it all depends on the game. Like, it's not every single game in my experience. Like, there's certain emulations that I play that really lags, like Star Fox for the SNES. That kind of lagged a little bit for me sometimes, especially when I'm playing it outside of the original hardware, outside of the SNES Classic. It's just not the same. And with the GameCube case, you gotta wonder, maybe that's why they only have it on Switch 2. Maybe that's why. Because since it's running on emulation, not original hardware, the GameCube emulator may have a lot more input lag if they also had it on Switch 1, right? I don't know. I just think that they could have maybe worked on making it fluid somehow, because, like, I don't know. There are other games that are more powerful than the GameCube that was on the Nintendo Switch console itself. And it runs perfectly well if they could have the right amount of settings. So yeah, that's pretty crazy.
Hey guys, in a world pushing you to own nothing and be happy, crypto is your key to survival. Join Angry's Crypto Academy to master buying, selling, and trading crypto. Make huge profits and safeguard your wealth. Plus, discover the one crypto virtually no one is talking about, poised to create new millionaires in the upcoming bull run. The link is in the description of the video below. Go check it out now.
Just got this in the mail, and I think it has to do with the Switch 2, so let's figure out how to open it up and see what's in this thing. The first thing you see is this Nintendo logo. Just slide it out of the box there, and that is the Nintendo GameCube controller that works with the Switch Online. Let's pop it out of here. Ooh, this thing feels really nice. If I was blindfolded and you handed me this thing compared to the actual controller, I would probably have a hard time figuring out which is which. Just look how awesome this is. I can't wait to get to use this on my Switch 2. Now we just have to wait for Nintendo to release more GameCube games on it.
So yeah, as you can see, we need more GameCube games. Like 3 games, people are going to like go through it and get tired of it like pretty much a day or two, except for maybe Wind Waker, because Wind Waker takes more longer than maybe at least Soul Calibur and F-Zero GX takes. I don't know. I just feel that people are going to get bored of those 3 games quick, and I feel that there's not enough game for launch. I feel that they should definitely have a lot more GameCube games to try it out, but now we're just playing the grading game. As you can see, the two controllers side by side, they look very similar, except one is a wireless and the other one is wired, the original GameCube controller. But yeah, if anyone can help me understand exactly why the GameCube is only playable on Nintendo Switch 2 and not on Nintendo Switch 1, help me understand that better, because I feel that it could have done it. But now I feel the next thing we're gonna get into is, like, I've been hearing some people lying about, or at least Nintendo themselves lying, that oh, the Nintendo GameCube controller will only work on the Nintendo GameCube Nintendo Switch Online membership app. So it's like the GameCube does not work outside of that app, right? But yeah, I think it actually does, and there will be some proof of it throughout this whole video, so I hope you understand what's going on here.
Right, we got some more baffling Switch 2 news, this time in regards to the GameCube controller accessory, so let's talk about it. During the Switch 2 Direct, it was revealed that a library of GameCube games would be getting added to the Nintendo Switch Online catalog, exclusive to Switch 2 players. But alongside that reveal, it was also announced that we would be getting a GameCube controller that's compatible with the Switch 2 console. Well, turns out it's only kind of compatible, and there's some major limitations with this accessory. It's been revealed by Nintendo UK up there in the super tiny fine print on the screen. It reveals that the Nintendo Switch 2's GameCube controller is only compatible with those GameCube games in that Nintendo Switch Online library. So if you were hoping to use the controller for something like Mario Kart World, it looks like that won't be doable. It is limited to exclusively the games in this catalog that will continue to grow through the upcoming years. Don't get me wrong, I'm still incredibly excited for the Nintendo Switch 2, and I'm even excited for that GameCube catalog. This just feels like such a bizarre choice, especially when you're...
Okay, so Nintendo had us believe that this only works on the Nintendo Switch Online GameCube edition thingy, like the controller will not work outside of it, and that's quite a limit and very disappointing, because Nintendo says that's true, it must be true, right? But yeah, let's keep going with the other clips that I found here, and we'll see if that's true across the board.
Controller will be usable with games outside of the GameCube Classic Games app, and if it will also work with the original Switch. They came back to us and said the Nintendo GameCube controller is designed for use with the Nintendo GameCube Nintendo Classic collection of games and is an optional way to play those games. Since it doesn't have all the buttons and features found in other controllers that can be used with the Nintendo Switch 2 system, there may be some issues when playing other games. The Nintendo GameCube controller can only be used on Nintendo Switch 2 and is not compatible with Nintendo Switch.
Okay, did anyone else pick up the Nintendo Switch 2 GameCube controller? Because the Z button, clicky. Do you hear that? Not a lot of travel. I don't know if you can see that. It's, hold on. See? Not a lot of travel. This is my OG GameCube controller, my Wavebird. And then I have my Smash Bros. One, which it's a little bit stiffer than the original, but still has that travel to it. Not loud. But this? That's a hard click. That feels like how the Z buttons came out for all the third-party GameCube controllers, like back in the day. So then, I was watching a YouTube video about the new GameCube controller, and I was waiting for him to say something about the Z button. He's like, yeah, all the buttons feel exactly the same, even the triggers. And I'm like, do I have a defective GameCube controller? Because I've never had anything defective from Nintendo. So I want to know, if anyone else got this, please let me know. Let me know. Do I need to crack this baby open and like see what's going on? Because I don't want to do that, because this thing was $65 and you can only get one per account. So I just want to know. If you guys can help me out, let me know. I hope this finds the right people.
Only one per account. That I didn't know, honestly. I did not know that this was only one GameCube controller per account. That is crazy. So yeah, I can understand why you wouldn't want to open that thing. But yeah, who knows? Probably that is a defective GameCube controller with the click. or maybe other GameCube controller that is for Nintendo Switch 2 is there. And if you saw the video earlier, she mentioned that it could be used for Nintendo Switch 1, apparently. So I have yet to see the video myself, but by the end of the video, we'll see if that's true or not. 100%. But Nintendo advertises like, yes, it only works for the Nintendo GameCube Online. So now let's go and move on to where if the GameCube controller is actually good and it works well on the Nintendo Switch 2. Because yeah, you could connect to it on the Switch 2 outside of the Switch menu and stuff like that. But then after that, it's like, let's see what else it can do.
It's got a little GameCube graphic. The buttons are all colored correctly. That's a nice touch. Okay, so we have the GameCube controller in. Does work fine, which is what you get when you plug it in through that GameCube adapter anyway. So, but in this case, it is acting like a wireless GameCube controller that it recognized. It's not seeing it as like a Pro controller or something. It sees it outright as a, whoa. It changed it to like match the color of the controller. That's actually pretty awesome. I didn't realize it did that. Huh.
There's something I want to verify real quick with this clip.
Which is what you get when you plug it in.
So you could use it in the menu, I guess. So yeah, that's what I wanted to verify. Sorry that I missed that for a moment.
Through that right as a, whoa. It changed it to like match the color of the controller. That's actually pretty awesome. I didn't realize it did that. Huh. So that's a fun touch. I don't know if we'll ever get different colors of the GameCube controller. I feel like we're just getting one. But I guess if they did different ones, then you could change this to, I don't know, I guess like platinum or like black or something. Or orange. If they give us the Japan exclusive or specific orange, like that creamsicle color, that'd be cool. But for now, it's interesting that they decided to do that as like a fun little touch for, well, spending $65 on another controller. Anyway, okay, so with this now, we have the 3 games, and feels pretty solid in the menu, of course. Button presses are good. Let's open up Wind Waker. Oh yeah, I forgot I'm supposed to be sneaking into the fortress here. But just to get an idea of the rough controls, how everything feels with this. Which means I actually don't have my sword now either.
So as you can see, for the most part, he's showing it playing Nintendo GameCube games with Wind Waker on the controller. It seems to be pretty responsive from what I'm seeing for the time being. But what do you guys think? If you guys are more observant than I am, what do you guys think about this thing?
It does. I mean, it does feel like you're just playing on a GameCube. They have the button up here that's kind of hidden. When you press that, it at least brings up your suspend menu there. So it is at least nice to have that. And it's out of the way enough to where you wouldn't accidentally press it even when going for L right here. It is out of the way enough. D-pad is good. Well, as good as it can be. The GameCube's D-pad was kind of one of its shortcomings there. But, okay, yeah, so far, this is pretty good. You know what, well, this is an unfortunate spot in Wind Waker because I don't have a bunch of items or anything I can really, like, run around. Played this on the 2 in general, the video. They work well if you have, like, just the GameCube hardware itself, but with some sort of HDMI adapter through that digital port on the back. It looks awesome. Even back then, through a CRT, it looked great. It probably still would now. I haven't seen it on a CRT, I'll tell you, in a long time now. Let's just go into arcade mode real quick. Been working through, just kind of unlocking some people.
And here is where we're gonna see if there's any input lag in a fighting game for the GameCube. You know, running an emulation using the GameCube controller wirelessly. Yeah, let's see how that goes.
As I go. I've been playing like the Weapon Master mode and everything here and there. But I haven't played it with this GameCube controller yet. I've been using the Pro controller. Little awkward, I'll say, with the Pro controller. Although you'll get used to it because that is, of course, set up better. But this is like the right here, this very weird looking, I'm sure to many people, button configuration is what many of us were used to when playing Soul Calibur back in the day. Especially if you played as like Link.
And this is the video I wanted to show you guys to end it off. This is the TikTok video that shows that the Nintendo GameCube controller for Nintendo Switch Online service is not limited to the GameCube Nintendo Switch Online. Oh no. It also works on Mario Kart World. So let's see how it works.
In case anybody was wondering, you can absolutely use this for all your games. You do not need to just use this for the Nintendo Switch Online. You can use this for any game you want to play. And that's why I think it's worth it. Oh, not no 50.
So as you can see here, Nintendo lied to us. Nintendo freaking lied to us, saying that this controller only works for GameCube games on Nintendo Switch Online membership. But yet, for some reason, this video proves that this GameCube control can also work on Mario Kart World and all that stuff. Oh yeah, you kind of like false advertised there, I think, with that. And you need to bring clarification that this controller can also work on Nintendo Switch 2 games, but you don't want us to know about it, right? Trust me, when it comes to Smash Brothers and Mario Kart, I much prefer using a GameCube style controller like this than to use a regular Pro controller. Why? Because I leave my A button pressed at all times when I'm racing for the most part, and it's much more comfortable to leave your thumb on the A button compared to on the smaller A button on a Pro controller and stuff like that. So there's a big difference of feeling right there. What you guys think? Let me know in the comment section below what you think about Nintendo kind of like misadvertising the fact that GameCube controller can be played on the Switch 2 in general, so you can play Mario Kart World on it and all that stuff, which is amazing because that's what I prefer playing it on. Yeah, what do you guys think? Because thankfully that's not the case what Nintendo say. I'm glad that Nintendo lied, because if they were actually telling the truth, that would suck, honestly. The GameCube controller is amazing on Mario Kart. Prove me wrong, honestly. Yeah, so I'm about to end this. I hope you guys enjoyed this commentary. If you want to check out my YouTube channel, it's Magbo Gaming. Check out my game collecting videos, my retrospective, especially the N64 that I just posted recently. Check out Angry Guys Rumble as well, because this has become pretty much a censorship on YouTube, and it's best to go on Rumble if you do not want to hold back on your criticism against certain companies out there, within reason, of course. And yeah, I hope that you enjoy. I see you all in the next one, and just be careful with the Switch 2. Have self-awareness. If you're gonna buy it, then be aware of all the issues and all the things that been going on, so Nintendo don't take advantage. You will own nothing and be happy type of thing. But if you want to continue to own stuff, check out the Angry's Crypto Academy as well in the description below too, so you can know which cryptos that we recommend you check into and invest on. And I'll see you all in the next one. Magbo out, and peace.